with consequent dripping of beet juices onto cream products.
Yes, say no more.
Handling routines, suspect. Evidence of smoking in food preparation area. Dirty and grubby food handling overalls. Lack of wash hand basin, which you gave us a verbal assurance you'd have installed on our last visit 6 months ago, and 2 dead pigeons in the water tank.
Otherwise okay?
Yeah, and we've got a real environmental health officer here in the studio today, Sarah Appleby.
Hello.
Listen, are those the sort of things that you look out for when you're working?
Yes, you have to be very careful about hygiene when preparing food. Bacteria like the same food as us, so if you let them grow, they can cause food poisoning.
Yeah, well, we all know it's important to wash your hands before a meal, but how important would you say it is?
Oh, very important. Have a look at this handprint.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, you can see it there, the fingers and everything. There's a thumb. And that's all bacteria.
That's right.
This is a lip print here, isn't it, I understand?
Yes, and that shows the reason why you shouldn't smoke near food.
Well, I thought that was to stop ash and so forth.
Oh, well, that's part of the reason. But it's really because every time you touch your lips, bacteria can be put onto the food.
So, in fact, licking your fingers and having a little dip in is not a very good idea.
Definitely not, no.
Well, most food has some bacteria on it already, doesn't it?
Yes, and raw meat's one of the worst. 8 out of 10 raw chickens have a bacteria called Salmonella.
That's one that causes a pretty nasty food poisoning, isn't it?
Yes, but if you cook the food properly, it should kill all the bacteria.
So you must keep raw meat separate from cooked meat, such as like that ham?
Yes, even the cooked meat can get reinfected by the raw meat.
Right, well, if we keep food at the right temperature, that should stop the bacteria growing too quickly.
Yes, you should either keep food very hot or very cold. If I was doing an inspection, hot food would have to be kept hotter than 63 degrees Celsius or colder than 10 degrees Celsius.
And what happens in between?
Well, that's the danger zone when bacteria can grow very quickly and they may cause food poisoning.
Although it can be dangerous to grow some bacteria, you should be quite safe with these. They're very useful. They help you turn milk into yogurt. And if you want to make some yogurt yourself, it's very easy. What you need is a pint of sterilised milk. Now, that's the long life sort or the dry sort. You can use ordinary pasteurised milk, but you must boil that first and then let it cool. Anyway, whatever milk you decide to use, it's best to add an extra tablespoon of dried milk because that does help the yogurt set better. Right, so start with a clean bowl. A tablespoon of natural yogurt, stir in the milk, stir it well, and then cover it over and put it for a few hours in a warm place, or maybe overnight. Try keeping it at different temperatures. See what that does to the yogurt. And you can test the milk before you start to see if it's acid. Compare that to the yogurt afterwards. Anyway, when it's ready, you can eat your yogurt plain, or try designing your own flavours. Either way, it's a pity all bacteria don't taste as nice as these. Beautiful. Green plants grow all over the world. Together they...
You sleep well?
Not too bad.
All families are busy in the mornings, getting their breakfast and remembering to get everything done. But our family has one extra thing to do. We have to remember to give the children some medicine. Both our children suffer from asthma.
Here's your medicine. There's your... Are you going to do it yourself? Yes. All right, you sure you can do it?
The children have to take an inhaler And this is a way of getting the medicine that they need down into the chest where it will do them some good.
That's good. Right, now, let's get on to you, Harry. So you take a big puff now. And hold it at it, lovely, and...
Asthma is a very common condition. At least 1 child in 10 suffers from it. So I have to keep a careful watch on a lot of children at work. I'm a doctor, and Hardeep is one of my young patients who often has a bad chest.
Hardeep Mahal, room 5, please.
This is just a way of checking how bad your chest is. OK, you take a big breath and you go...
When you've got asthma, you find it hard to take enough breath, enough air into your chest to do what you want. What people actually find is that they can sometimes get air in, but they can't get it out again. The peak flow meter is a way of measuring how fast air is blowing out.
Well, that's pretty good. That's very good. You sit down again. Right. Now, that's shown that he's wheezing at about 150 on the meter here. Now, he should be doing a bit better than that when he's well. And what I think we need to try and do is to give him an inhaler to take instead of tablets or syrup. Now, the best person who is teaching these things, actually, is my nurse. I don't know if you've met Sister Anderson.
Right. You stand up to use it then.
All right.
One of the things that the nurse has to do is to find out how well Hardeep can use an inhaler.
That's terrific. Can you get the blue one up?
And she measures this with this gadget which Hardeep has to suck on.
Well done.
And it measures really how hard he can suck.
So that gives me an idea of a different sort of inhaler that he'd be able to use.
This way we can decide what kind of inhaler is best.
And here we've got it, and it's called a rotahaler. All right?
Yeah.
And in this little box, you can carry all the tablets in it that you need for your day. Okay. Right. I'm going to show you on mine, first of all. Right, we take one of these.
The medicine in Hardeep's inhaler is going to help his chest to open out those tiny little airways at the bottom of his chest, which means that more air can get down there, and that means he'll be able to breathe more easily, especially when he has to breathe more quickly, like when he's running around.
Then you can use your fingers if you want to. All right.
Sally has had asthma since she was 2, and she's now 11.
In the last year, it's got worse. I'm not sure if I've got out of it or not. I don't know. It would certainly be nice if I grew out of having asthma, but if I didn't, I know I've got my inhaler. When I was little, if I got wheezy or I felt the tightness in my chest, I used to feel frightened. Even if I did have my inhaler, I used to feel really frightened. But now, I know that it does me good, and I know that I can rely on my inhaler to help me. I use my inhaler usually 4 times a day, and also when I need it. First, when I get up in the morning, at lunchtime, when I come home from school, and just before I go to bed, and any other time I need it, like when I go windsurfing. If you take your inhaler before you go on the water, then you feel more safe. You almost know that you're not going to get wheezy. I try to take my inhaler wherever I go and try not to forget it. I lead a normal life like everyone else, and I just have to learn when to take my inhaler and not to be stupid and not take it, and I lead a normal life.
Asthma is an illness that you need to take continuous treatment for, all the time, every day. There's another common illness that children suffer from that you also have to treat every day, and that's diabetes. Simon is diabetic. That means that his body doesn't make something called insulin, which the rest of us make all the time. Simon has to inject insulin because his body can't make it.
I'm a diabetic, and this means that I've got too much sugar in my blood, and I have to have stuff called insulin. But you see, inside of you, there's a part of the body called the pancreas, and my pancreas has stopped working, which means that it can't produce insulin, so I have to inject myself with insulin, which controls the amount of sugar in my blood. I was about 8 years old when I first noticed that I was diabetic. I was playing outside and every 5 minutes I just had to sit down because I couldn't carry on and coming in for drinks. My mum thought I was just being silly, but after a while she took me to the doctors and he took a blood test and he said it's hospital straight away. So I went into hospital and said I've got diabetes. The first time I did the injection on myself, I thought, this is hurting too much, but the whole problem is if I haven't got anyone there to do it for me, I'll have to do it myself. So I just got used to doing it myself. Yeah. Now I can do it when I'm alone or if I've gone out to friends. And I have to do my injection in the morning and in the evening. After I've done my injection, I have to worry about what I have to eat. If I don't eat enough food, my blood sugar level goes low down and I start to feel dizzy, I get headaches and I just feel sleepy and faint. I started off swimming with the school at 6 and I saw them doing the survivals and that's how I got involved in it. First of all, started off with my bronze survival, worked up to silver and then on to gold.
Right, OK now, close off and make me a float. When you've inflated it, you float for 5 minutes, OK?
The whole idea of the test is so that you know what to do if a ship sank and you were clothed, and if you were swimming and there was oil on the top of the surface, you could go under it, you'd know how far down to go and how far along to swim, and you'd know how to save yourself. After a few years, after I've been training for the survival tests, it was about then that I discovered I was diabetic. I stopped doing the swimming for a few weeks whilst the hospital came and told me what I had to do and how to cope with diabetes, and then I carried on.
After taking exercise, Simon might feel faint and he will need a sugary drink or something sugary to eat. He might even do that before he takes his exercise to stop himself feeling poorly. He has to be careful to keep a balance between the insulin which he injects and what he eats and drinks. And he does this by checking the sugar in his blood. He has to prick his finger and take a small drop of blood, testing it to see how much sugar there is in it.
Having injections doesn't really worry me now, being as I've been having them for 2 years. It does sometimes bother me about knowing that I've got to do it for life now. But I'm grateful that there is a drug, because if there wasn't, I probably wouldn't be here.
Simon has got diabetes for the rest of his life. It's not something that he's going to grow out of. But insulin has saved his life. If he didn't have it, he'd be dead. Most of us are lucky and don't have to use medicines continuously to keep us from being ill. We only need drugs or medicines when we're feeling quite poorly and the doctor decides that we need them to help us get better, and then we get them from the chemist.
Just a minute, it won't take me very long to do.
Medicines are drugs which help to make your body work better, and we must be very careful because they're quite strong and powerful things, so you have to be careful to follow the instructions.
There we are, that's Jermaine's tablets. Okay. Now, make sure he has something to eat before he takes the tablets, otherwise it'll give him a little bit of tummy ache. Okay. Hope you're soon feeling better.
Thanks.
Bye-bye, Jermaine. Bye. Good morning.
Good morning.
Manjit has an infection and her doctor has prescribed a medicine which will kill the germs that are causing the infection. Now, with medicines like antibiotics, it's very important to finish them so that all the germs are killed. Medicines from the doctor are always meant just for you. They're not meant for anyone else. You have to be sure that you only take your own. If you take someone else's, you never know what might be in it. It might not be very good for you at all. All medicines are kinds of drug, but not all drugs are medicines. A drug is something which has an effect on your body. It might be a good effect, when we would call it a medicine if it does something good for you, or it might be a bad effect. One of these people is taking a really dangerous drug. Can you spot what it is?
Thanks. Do you want a crisp? Thanks.
A cigarette is a kind of a drug, and it can kill you. It's addictive, which means that once you've started to take it, it's very difficult to stop. Another drug that's bad for you is alcohol. It has lots of bad effects on you, particularly on the brain. You have too much of it and see what happens. It's not very funny, really. People usually start using bad drugs like alcohol and smoking because their friends do, and it seems harmless at first. In fact, it seems a lot of fun. It's only later on that they start to get problems from them, when they find that they can't stop using them. If you keep on doing it, you get into more and more trouble. Sometimes people use not just alcohol and cigarettes, but illegal drugs like heroin and cocaine, which are injected or smoked. These are very, very hard to stop. With a drug that you're addicted to, like heroin and cocaine, you need more and more and more of it. And it can get very, very bad until you become seriously ill and you perhaps even die. Remember that there are good drugs and bad drugs. Good drugs help you, and they're given to you by an adult that you can trust, like the doctor or the chemist or your parents. Bad drugs don't help you. Taking them is just asking for trouble.
It had been a normal day at the Teachers' Centre. At 5:15 I was ready to go home. I phoned John to say that I was leaving, That was his signal to put the vegetables on. I drove normally along the road to Weedon, and there above the road in front of me was this dumbbell-shaped object. It was grey, smooth, plasticky looking. I assumed that the traffic coming towards me would be seeing it, but I didn't see anybody looking up at it at all. I turned into the village, and instead of going faster as I expected, the car was slowing down. Suddenly, everywhere went black. As I wondered where I was, a circle of brilliant white light suddenly shone on the road. I sat there wondering where these lights could have come from. I said, "Good gracious," out loud, and suddenly normal daylight had reappeared. I was driving the car normally about 30 yards further down the road, and I drove home. And I said to John, "I'm just going to look out of the window to see if I can see anything, and then I'll tell you something that you won't believe."
Every day, someone somewhere reports something strange in the sky. Almost all sightings are later identified, and no UFO has ever been confirmed as an alien spacecraft. But could alien life exist? And where might we find it? Astronomy isn't just for experts. You don't have to have a telescope.
All you need to look at the night sky is a pair of eyes and a fairly good, clear, dark sight, somewhere where there are not many streetlights around and not very many tall buildings or trees to block the horizon. Then you use the bright stars to point your way to the much smaller stars.
This is Orion, the Hunter, one of the groups of stars which seem to form a shape in our night sky. The star groups are called constellations, but if we could travel to them, we would see how the stars lie at vast distances from one another.
You can see about 2,000 stars on a very, very dark night. Once you get to know the patterns of stars in the night sky, you'll probably notice that there are some what appear to be incredibly bright stars that seem to move around over the course of a few months. And these are in fact the planets.
Unlike the planets, the Sun is a star. It generates heat and light, like all stars, and the planets just circle round it in orbit. The planets only seem bright because they reflect light from the Sun. Close in with Earth are 3 other solid rocky worlds. Then come 4 planets like Uranus, mostly giant balls of gas, nothing like our home. Beyond the gassy worlds is one last rocky planet, Pluto, marking the far edge of the solar system. It's so dim and distant that even the Hubble Space Telescope cannot make out its features clearly. If we could stand on Pluto, the Sun would be little more than a brilliant light in the sky. Without strong sunlight, Pluto is frozen, more than 200 degrees below zero. Alien life in the solar system would have to be closer in.
The Earth just happens to be the right distance from the Sun so that water can exist frozen, but also as a liquid and as a vapor. That can't happen anywhere else that we know of in the solar system, and we need that for life. Planet Venus, which is closest to the Earth, is just too close to the Sun. It's very, very hot.
But beneath its clouds, Venus is nearly the same size as Earth, almost a twin planet to our world. Spacecraft have used radar to create maps of the surface. This computer-generated flight is based on real data. Images like this have shown that Venus is much like our Earth, though the hills and valleys are far smaller. But the surface is strangely new compared to our world. And Venus has a weird, slow, backwards rotation on its axis that makes a Venusian day longer than a Venusian year. All this suggests that Venus was never home to alien life. Today it's a hostile place, hot enough to melt lead, let alone a human body. Mars looks much more promising. This movie was made using pictures from the Hubble Space Telescope.
Looking at photographs of Mars, it looks like a very long time ago that water might have flowed there. We see canyons and we see very dried up riverbeds. So we think that there was water on Mars at some point. So very, very possibly deep down in the soil, there might be some kind of bacteria or microbes.
Could these be fossilized alien bacteria? They were found in a rock that came from Mars. If the scientists are right, the fossils could be related to bacteria called slimes, which have recently been discovered on Earth. Slimes can live without heat or light in rocks deep underground. It seems that even on our planet, life can be every bit as alien as science fiction.
There's no reason why aliens would have to even look like us. For example, you could have an alien that looked like a rock on the outside, but perhaps had some living organism on the inside, or an alien that was like a giant worm, similar to the sorts of things that we find living down by volcanoes on the bottom of the sea.
Until submarines took pictures like these, no one believed life could exist this deep underwater. Foul chemicals at 400 Celsius spew from vents in the sea floor. But some bacteria can digest the chemicals, and in turn they feed other creatures. This may be where life began on Earth. The only other place like it is a moon of Jupiter. Europa may well have oceans as big as Earth's, but we won't know for sure until space probes visit it. Saturn has 20 moons. Titan is the biggest and the last hope for alien life nearby. Titan has a nitrogen-based atmosphere, something like the early Earth, but it's very, very cold. One day Titan might spring to life, but for the moment it's in deep freeze. Simple creatures like alien worms might just be our neighbors in space. But intelligent alien visitors would have to have traveled from far beyond our solar system. It's likely that humans will travel to Mars soon, but the journey will take more than 6 months. Getting to Pluto could take 20 years. Beyond Pluto, there's virtually nothing for a very long way. Even light from our sun takes 4.5 years to get to the nearest star, Proxima Centauri. It's part of a multi-star system, like most stars. Looking back from Proxima Centauri, the view would seem almost the same as from Earth, but with our sun as an extra point in the W-shaped constellation we call Cassiopeia. Just another star in the sky.
What makes the universe very strange compared to everyday experience in many ways is that its size, its time, and its physical conditions. The universe is huge and extremely old, which means there's been 10 billion years for things to happen.
Our sun is one in 100,000 million stars that make up our local star city. Together they're called the Milky Way galaxy, and if we could travel up above it, we would see its spiral shape, a billion kilometers across. The sun is about 2/3 out from the center. Beyond the Milky Way are even greater realms of empty space between ours and other galaxies. There are as many galaxies as there are grains of sand on a beach, but not an infinite number. The universe has no real edge, but it is a definite size.
To cross the universe at the speed of light, I think, is like making a train journey from Glasgow to London on a train that is travelling something like 1 millimetre per century, which makes even privatised British Rail seem pretty fast. So if you set off from Glasgow to London and after a century you've travelled 1 millimetre, that kind of rate of progress would take you to London in the same time as you would cross the universe travelling at the speed of light, which is 300,000 kilometres every second. Even then, though, I mean, who can imagine a train journey to London at 1 millimetre per century? The numbers are just so vast, very difficult to get your head around them.
This is a real photograph of 20 billion stars. Among